And developing now, the Harris County Sheriff's Office, we are anticipating a press conference here. The podium there, we're waiting for them to step up to the microphone to give us an update on that case we've been following since this weekend involving the murder of a child at an apartment complex in the Alief area. We will bring this to you live as soon as they begin speaking. But Andy, we do know that the mother and her boyfriend are facing charges in this case.
That's right. Brian Coulter faces a murder charge and was supposed to appear in court this morning, but did not. However, a judge did read the charges against him. So again, we are waiting for Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez to give us an update on the case. A health evaluation. The child's mother, Gloria Williams, was supposed to go before a judge as well this morning. Yes,
we understand that Brian Coulter, who is the boyfriend here, he faces a murder charge. He was supposed to be in front of a did not appear, but a judge did read the charges against him, and we're going to be checking in with our Brittany Jeffers here momentarily to give us the very latest from court this morning, as the judge did read those charges aloud. But again, we are anticipating here a press conference with the Harris County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Ed Gonzalez taking the podium now. Let's listen in.
Good morning. I'm Ed Gonzalez, your Harris County Sheriff, and thank you for joining us this morning as we provide an update to our community on a recent case. There aren't many jobs in our agency that are tougher than those involving abused children. These incidents are horrific, heartbreaking cases of abuse and neglect, and they involve the most innocent and defenseless among our community. On Sunday, our patrol deputies and investigators responded to a gruesome child abandonment case. For many agency veterans, it was the most disturbing scene they worked in their entire law enforcement career. It seemed too horrific to be real. It's hard to even explain to you that feeling. Our investigators immediately began piecing together what happened and trying to unfold a seemingly senseless death of a child who was supposed to be loved and cared for, and trying to understand unspeakable living conditions for the dead child's siblings who were left alone for months to fend for each other. We are here to share what we know today and to share our continued commitment to these children and our community. We must work tirelessly as child safety advocates to protect our most vulnerable, and we must work as a team. Sergeant Dennis Wolford with our homicide unit will be talking through the charges with you and any updates on this active investigation. And I want to emphasize active. It's still an active investigation that is continuing. Briefly, I want to provide a scene recap. On Sunday, October 24th, 2021, at about 3:15 p.m., our deputies received a phone call from a 15-year-old child who advised that his brother had been dead for a year and his body was in an apartment unit at 3530 Greencrest near West Park Tollway. He also stated that his parents had not lived in the apartment in West Harris County with him and his siblings for several months. Our patrol deputies found a 15-year-old and two other male children in an apartment unit ages 10 and 7 who appeared malnourished and showed signs of physical injury. They also found skeletal dry remains. The Sheriff's Office Homicide Unit, Child Abuse Unit, and Crime Scene Unit investigators responded to the scene. The children were taken to a local hospital to be assessed and treated. The Texas Department of Family and Protective Services received emergency custody of them. Now I want to pause just briefly just to say that in the midst of the darkness and this horrific situation, that I'm so glad that that 15-year-old finally reached out for help. I want to say that I'm glad that he found assistance at the end of the other line with one of our call takers. And I'm comforted to know that when he opened the door and there was a Harris County Sheriff's Office deputies there, that they could finally receive the care and protection that they've needed for so long. And that's what law enforcement does every single day, finding people in their darkest moments. The mother of the children, 35-year-old Gloria Yvette Williams, and her boyfriend, 31-year-old Brian Ward Coulter, were located late Sunday night and interviewed by investigators before being released without charges. Now, I think it's important to note that at that point, it's still an ongoing active investigation. We didn't find them until late that night, And so we have to make sure that we're being thorough, not getting ahead of the evidence and the investigation that's ongoing. And so at that point, they were released without any charges. On Tuesday, October 26, 2021, the Sheriff's Office Homicide Unit charged the mother's boyfriend, Brian Coulter, with the murder of the child, who was confirmed to be 8 years old at the time of his death in 2020. The manner and cause of death were ruled a murder by multiple blunt force injuries, according to the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences. The mother of the murdered child, Gloria Yvette Williams, was charged with injury to a child by omission and tampering with evidence. Both Williams and Coulter were taken into custody without incident by our Criminal Warrants Unit investigators, and this remains an active investigation. At this point, I want to introduce Sergeant Dennis Wolford, the lead investigator with our homicide unit, that will speak about the child's murder and updates. A lot of this information will still be general. Keep in mind, there are certain things we could answer, other things we simply can't at this point for a variety of reasons. And it remains active because there's always a possibility, as we mentioned, that there could be additional charges, that charges could be upgraded. So it's still an unfolding investigation at this point. But at this point, I introduce Sergeant Wolford.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning. Again, my name is Sergeant Dennis Wolford. I'm the supervisor of the homicide unit that was tasked with investigating this. It's a group of 6 investigators. The lead investigator is actually Deputy John Craig. Child abuse also made the scene with us, and they were invaluable in the input that they gave us dealing with CPS and things like that. One of the things that I want to express, I know that there was a lot of people upset that these people weren't taken into custody right away. And one of the things you have to understand is, one, the law of statements, the laws of the state of Texas, and how we get these things into trial. We knew at that point that these children were safe because they were in CPS custody, and the decision was made not to arrest that night. And the reason is because a lot of evidence has to come in before we can actually file charges, including a ruling from the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences on what caused this child's death. We also had numerous people, forensic interviews with the children and stuff like that had to be done. Plus, we have to corroborate what the children are telling us before charges can be filed. So believe me, we, from the very beginning, me, the 6 of us, the child abuse guys, we were focused on getting these charges done. We wanted to get them done as quickly as possible. But above all murder investigations, child deaths, child murders, they are methodical investigations. And our end goal is to see that justice is served, not to just put people in jail. We want justice to be served. I will answer any questions that I can for you. There may be some that I cannot. Again, as the sheriff said, in my long time of working homicides, this one's up there. This one affected us.
We'll circle back with the questions just a bit. Let me.
Sure. Yes.
And I also want to mention that we have members here from our Crimes Against Children unit as well. Lieutenant Lovett and his team are here as well, and so they'll be present if there's certain questions that perhaps they can answer. I do want to just mention a couple things that may come up before we get into other parts of it, is that it's our understanding that the children that were present in the apartment, that there were two fathers involved, not involved in the scene, what I'm saying in terms of connected to them. We're told, we haven't confirmed it yet, but that one is possibly deceased already and the other was simply not involved in the lives of the children, so they were not in the picture. There's also, I believe, at least 2 other siblings that were not in the apartment that are elsewhere as well. So I just wanted to mention that we are aware of those dynamics as well. I want to just briefly say it in Spanish as well, just recap what we had. El día domingo, el 24, como a las 3:15, recibimos una llamada de una adolescente de 15 años que avisó que...
We've been listening to Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, Harris County, talk about the case of the mother and boyfriend who are now both facing charges. And Andy, what we've been following since Sunday, 3 children abandoned in an apartment unit and the decomposing remains of their 9-year-old brother also found in that apartment, and they were to appear in front of a judge this morning.
That's right. Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez telling us this morning that the 15-year-old reached out for help, talked to a call taker, and advised that call taker that his brother had been dead for a year. Dry skeletal remains were found inside of that apartment. The children's mother, 35-year-old Gloria Williams, is charged with injury to a child by omission and tampering with evidence. Her boyfriend, 31-year-old Brian Coulter, has been charged with the murder of Williams' 8-year-old child.
And the mother, Gloria Williams, who we do anticipate will be before a judge at any minute, and we'll be checking in with Brittany Jeffers and go to her live momentarily here. But we're going to stay with this press conference. The mother is being charged with injury to a child by omission and also tampering with evidence. The boyfriend in the case, the 31-year-old Brian Coulter, Andy, that you mentioned, he's being held for a mental health evaluation, so he was not in court this morning, but we understand the judge did read the charges against him. But just a heartbreaking situation right here for everyone. Let's go back to Sheriff Gonzalez right now.
Just, you know, to the siblings that remain and anyone that has ever cared for these children in some form or fashion. And so our heart breaks for them, and we're going to do everything possible to be their aspects through the part of the system that we control, and that we leave no stone unturned, as I promised at the scene. And we will also, our prayer, or my prayer, is that the remaining children find the love, support, and protection that they so desperately need and deserve, and that they have been missing for so long. And I hope that their future is better than their past. We're also told that they hadn't been in school since last May, so for more than a year they've been missing out on that as well. So there's a lot of factors to this, a lot of moving parts, and so that's where we're at right now. I'll go ahead and pause just to see if there's any. I'm sure there'll be questions, but Donald?
What were the children's injuries? You said when you found them, they appeared to be malnourished and physically injured. What were their injuries?
Lieutenant, do you want to speak a little bit to the injuries, or does anyone know just the physical injuries?
So the 9-year-old does have an injury to the jaw that we come to believe was caused to his jaw by the boyfriend, Brian Coulter, several weeks ago. There was no medical attention given for that injury. That injury is going to cause, or he's going to have surgery, and that surgery will happen soon. They were very thin. You know, one of the first things I asked them what are they hungry, and they said they were. And the first thing, I don't know if it was because we're cops or what, but they wanted donuts. And we immediately went and got them Shipley's donuts. But the physical injury that was evident to the 9-year-old, you know, that's the only real overt sign of trauma to them as far as physical.
I want to mention as well, because that was something that was very disturbing, is that back to the different parts, we had the dry remains, skeletal remains that were present. So clearly in our initial observations, the body had been there for a long time, you know, and so that was disturbing. But on top of that, we had a serious injury to another small child that apparently had not received, to our knowledge, any kind of medical attention, any pain treatment or anything like that during the course of this. I also want to point out as well, I mentioned a little bit that the apartment was in a deplorable condition. We saw soiled carpet, no furniture at all, no bedding, no blankets, nothing that we could see, and it appeared to have roaches and flies and just things. It was very bad condition for anyone, especially children, to live in.
I spoke with neighbors who were the ones helping give that 15-year-old food, and they didn't know there were 2 other boys inside that apartment. To your knowledge, did the 2 younger boys ever leave the apartment for several months? Were they stuck in the apartment?
That's my understanding.
I do not believe that the 2 young boys were ever allowed to leave that apartment. There is some evidence that perhaps they were locked in, possibly different parts of the apartment, and they were not to leave that apartment, from what I understand.
With what you can tell us, it obviously took, the 15-year-old was brave enough to call you guys, but it did take a year fear? What can you tell us about what he's saying? Threatening? What took so long to call authorities?
I believe it was absolute fear. The investigation is leading us to the fact that this mother and her boyfriend have been together for a few years now, a couple years. And over time, I think that the beatings were consistent and mainly, involving the younger children. And the 15-year-old just absolutely afraid and was basically hoping or relying on his mother to at some point contact law enforcement and advise of his deceased brother in the house, and that didn't happen. And I think after a year's time, the 15-year-old boy finally said enough is enough, and that's when he decided to contact law enforcement.
So those children have been through a lot of trauma, and so again, I mean, fear, the death of a sibling and other things, it's just heartbreaking, and so the trauma is just at another level. So, one in Spanish?
Sí. ¿Dónde estaban estos señores? ¿Dónde estaba la esposa, y la madre y este señor? ¿Dónde los encontraron?
All right, you've been listening to Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, talk about the extremely disturbing specifics here, Andy, relating to this case involving the 3 children that were abandoned in that apartment unit along with the remains of a younger brother.
Want to get to our Brittany Jeffers, who is joining us live from downtown Houston with an update from court. Brittany.
Yes, you continue to hear those details of what those children endured. It's truly heartbreaking to hear. And as we mentioned, we have 2 adults here who are facing charges. And it was earlier this morning that Brian Coulter, the boyfriend in this case, he did not appear in court this morning. And the judge says that is because he is currently on a mental health evaluation hold. Now, he didn't appear. However, the judge did read his charges, that murder charge. Now, we learned that his bond was set at $1 million, and as part of this bond supervision order, he is not allowed to have any contact with the children who were in that house or with any minors for that matter. We're also told that he is not allowed to have any contact with Williams. Now, this is if he is able to post bond. Now, focusing on Gloria Williams, the children's mother, she is set to appear in probable cause court here this afternoon. She was set to appear around 10 o'clock. Court was delayed. They are currently in session right now. We don't know exactly when she will appear, but the judge did say that it will be she will appear last for her safety, but we do not know at what time that will happen. Of course, we will stay on this. We will continue to keep you updated as we learn more. Reporting live, I'm Brittany Jeffers, KPRC 2 News.
Certainly a story we will continue to follow throughout the day, both here on the air and online. Brittany, thank you so much.